So the topic I wanted to talk about tonight was how loving yourself actually makes you a good person. And this came about from a conversation I was having with a friend on the phone the other night. And she was telling me about some relationship trouble she was having. She's was starting a new, tentatively starting a new relationship. She'd been talking to this guy for like 5 months. It seemed like things were going good. It seemed like he was a good guy and that this might be different. But then all of a sudden, literally overnight, it just kind of exploded and all kind of went south. And she was feeling totally unbalanced. And it just seemed like the same exact cycle that's been played out in her life over and over again with relationships. And so she's feeling really, bummed out and distraught by this because just the same cycle keeps going over and over again. And I definitely know what that's like, having gone through the same cycle of relationships over and over again. And so we started digging a little bit into that cycle of hers, like why, trying to figure out why it keeps happening or why this keeps repeating. And she said, or it seemed to her, just in her opinion, that she just loves too much. I mean, she wants to love someone so much that she just always gives herself away, and then it's not reciprocated by the other person. She just tries to love and care for this other person, and they're never able to meet her, never willing or able for whatever reason to meet her halfway. And so we started talking, digging into this a little bit more. I was trying to understand. So why wanted to understand why she felt this need to um, love someone so much. Why she felt this urge to care for someone, to love for someone. Because she talked about how she likes being in a relationship and buying presents for the other person and doing nice things all the time. Just making the other person feel really happy. She likes that feeling of making someone else feel happy. And as we dug into it more, uh, we finally arrived to the root of it. Is that to her, it feels like an inherently good act to make another person feel good. It's one of those things that seems like an unquestionably good thing to try to make someone else feel better. And I agreed with her. I mean, that is a very noble and good thing to do, right? You can't really argue with that it's good to make someone else feel happy. I think that's a universal truth, or very few people would argue with it, that it's unquestionably good to make a person feel happy. But so then I pointed out to her that she is a person also. I mean, we all, each of us is a person also. So and it's good to make ourselves happy as well. It brings the same amount of good into the world to make ourselves happy as it does to make a partner in a relationship happy, right? Because it's the overall amount of goodness in the world is increased by one person, whether it's another person or ourselves. It's still, if you just think about it in this purely utilitarian sense, that it's just as good to make ourselves happy as to make another person happy. And so she kind of agreed with that, and she said she's been trying to make herself happy. That day she'd gone on a shopping spree and bought some nice stuff for herself, bought some good food, all the stuff, all that self-care stuff you're supposed to do when you're feeling bad to take care of yourself. But it wasn't working. She still felt really crappy. She was still feeling pretty miserable. And that's a common fallacy that we're indoctrinated with from our culture, that buying stuff is the best way to make ourselves or someone else feel happy, right? That's the cultural, that's the culture of capitalism that we're all raised in and born in. But if you think about it, the reason someone feels happy when another person's giving them gifts is, it's not the gift itself, it's the intention behind it. It's the act of trying to make someone feel loved, right? I mean, so what that's what she really wanted to do. She was trying to make another person feel loved. And so I pointed out to her that similarly to being happy, making another person feel loved is an inherently good act. And you are a person also. So making yourself feel loved is also an inherently good act. But we're somehow brought up in our society, or a lot of us start to believe that somehow it's more valuable to love someone else, to make someone else feel loved. I think especially for women in our culture, they're taught from an early age to be doting wives and doting mothers. That a lot of women are taught to place the needs of their family ahead of their own, and I think that's something that a lot of women struggle with. Um, but and so it can be really hard for us to change that perspective, to accept that it's just as good to make ourselves feel loved as it is to make another person feel loved. And in fact, it's even better in a sense, because when we fully love ourselves, then we can love another person freely. When we're full of love ourselves, we can freely give away love. We can love another person without needing to be loved in return. Because I'm sure, as many of us know, when you love someone and you need to be loved in return, when you come to depend on that love from another person, that's what codependency is, right? That leads to unhealthy relationship dynamics, where you need another person to validate you. You need another person to make you feel loved, to make you feel worthy. And so even from a purely selfish standpoint, it's better to love yourself and fill your own heart with love before you try to love others. There's a great quote from Sharon Salzberg that goes something like, love for others without the foundation of love for ourselves leads to loss of boundaries, codependency, and a long and fruitless search for intimacy. I think I can definitely relate to that long and fruitless search for intimacy. It's something I've dealt with a lot in my life. But so the point is that loving ourselves is one of the best things we can do for the world, because when we make ourselves feel loved, we're bringing more love into the world. And when we ourselves are full of love, then we can selflessly try to help the world. We can selflessly think about what the world needs instead of doing something that is bringing us love that we need. And so I'm not sure she really bought it by the end of the conversation, because this is really hard for us, a lot of us, to wrap our heads around, I think. I don't know if any of you can relate to that fruitless search for intimacy. I know Jeff and Gina, you've been married for 22 years, so you guys don't count. but but I think this is, and especially uh, from some of my female friends I've talked to, and from a lot of what I read on the Elephant Journal, this is something a lot of people struggle with, that it's somehow better to love other people. It's better to care for other people than it is to care for ourselves. But I think it's really important to make that a priority, to love ourselves, so that we can, from that foundation of a full heart, then we can selflessly figure out how to best help the world.